on the second day he said, "Because I know I'm all about that bass. About that bass. No treble." My god, that joke was lame as fuck. Hello fellow Herders of Blue, and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to another basing video. And this is a very special basing video because this is a basing video centered around the Curse City paint jobs. This will be the base that you will see on all my Curse City models, and here is the video on how you can paint and make those bases super easily. I will be using for my main build products from Spellcraft, and I'm sure all of you know Spellcraft already. They make a ton of bits and basing products, and also amazing minis that you can see here. And they have sent me some incredible products for Curse City that I think are the perfect items you can buy if you want to replicate the Curse City tiles super easily. Here will be our main products that we will be using to recreate the pavement tiles. These are called very appropriately Pavement and Pavement version 2, and they are super nice. As you can see, you have a very small pavement style and a larger one, and I combined them both, you will see later on. They've also sent me other products that I won't be using in this video, but I will be using for my Curse City basing. Just I wanted to keep things as simple as possible, just the very basic bases. But they have this stone floor piece here that is super good for more distressed kind of rock, and I will be basing some of my models with this. And they also send me these wood planks that I will be adding to the bases, because my bases will be inspired in this style. And you can see we have some wood, we have some larger pieces of distressed or broken rock, we have some pavement, like this, and this with some very nice skulls are the perfect set of tools we can use to recreate the Curse City on our bases super easily. But let's just say, but if you don't want to spend the money, or you can't, because we all have budgets, I will also show you how you can sculpt your own pavement bases using green stuff. So, let's get cracking. So the first method I'm going to show you on how to make this is going to be using a Spellcraft product. And as I've shown you in the intro, those products are just perfect for basing Curse City models. I'm just going to do a very simple pavement base, nothing more, because I just want to show you the basics on how to paint it. I don't want to go into like bone and wood and whatever. So we get this tile. You will want to wash this to get rid of any mold release product. I'm going to take my heavy duty flash cutters, and I'm just going to take the parts that I'm interested in. It doesn't matter if this breaks, because of course, there you go. We will add more pieces into it. I'm just going to go around and removing the bits that I don't want. That I'm going to take this brick and I'm going to use it later. All those pieces are very useful, so don't throw them away. Yeah, that sounds like a good start, so I'm going to glue this down. I'm just using regular super glue here, nothing fancy. And I'm going to take some of the random pieces that fallen off, and I'm just going to glue them in places where they will fit better, like there and there. There you go. Basically repositioning them where they are better suited. And now I'm going to pick some of this V1 pavement to fill in the gaps of this bigger pattern. like that. It breaks super easy along the lines. It's fairly easy to work with this. Now everything is knitted up on the edges. I was just using my different flash cutters to get that done. I'm going to take some basing paste. It doesn't matter which one it is, just to fill in the gaps. I'm just going to use it as a filler. I'm using this one, but again, it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to put it into the gaps between the stones, just like that. And a neat trick with this basing compounds is you can apply it over the edge, and then you can clean your brush on a pot of water and then just go and tidy that up, because this take a long time to dry, so that's a very useful thing to do. Apply it thickly and then knit up later on. There you go. You just basically want to fill in the gaps in between the stones, so it's just not a flat base. Again, working in this texture paint into all the cracks that are a bit big, and then feathering it out, integrating it with the rest of the base, just like that. So now I'm going to show you how you can make your own pavement style bases using just green stuff. I have my green stuff here mixed. I'm just going to apply it into the surface, and you want a kind of like a 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeters of thickness here. I'm not going to bother with it being very, very smooth. And now we are just going to sculpt all the detail. So I'm going to start with a line here. We want to press our tool down as much as possible and make a wide line. Those lines will get thinner later on, so we want to make them wide to start with, so we have a better definition in the later process. And I'm just going to start sculpting the different pavement bits. Again, we don't have to be very concerned about how this is looking now. So now I have my whole pavement pattern finished, and my next step will be to trim any excess green stuff that is on the edge of this base, and you can do that with a knife tool, or you can just use a regular cutter or an X-Acto blade. I'm going to have this wet and just going to go around the edge using the base edge to kind of support it so it's flat, just like that. And once I have that trimmed, you will have to go back and redefine those edges where the tiles connect to the edge of the base, because of course you will have some deformation there, but it's very, very easy to fix. This is a very good example where we have a very pronounced deformation, but just going back with your sculpting tool, you will get that sorted easily. And once that is done, I'm going to use the most sophisticated sculpting tool ever created by man to recreate the stone texture on the pavement tiles, and that is a piece of aluminium foil. That's simple. It's been I just torn a little piece of it, make it a ball, make it wrinkle, and then just going to wet this. So we have, and I'm going to wet the base, so it's well lubricated, and I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to press it over the tiles. And immediately you will see, you will get a really nice texture on those tiles. And this pressing will also make the tiles come together more, make the separation between them smaller, and creating a tighter pattern. So that's why we didn't, we made the first cuts wider. And all of a sudden we have a really nice texture on the pavement. Just that simple. And I'm just going to take a fine sculpting tool, and I'll just, if some of the edges have moved about and are a bit smooshed, not as they should be, I'm going to go, this is a very, very thin sculpting tool. I'm just going to go in and make them a bit more defined. Maybe push a little bit to make them a square, you know, just make everything look nicer. So now I have everything well defined and crisp, and I like it a lot. I also removed a random tile here because I'm going to add a bit of sand there to add a bit more variation. And now is the last step of the sculpting process, and that is to add some cracks into some of the tiles. So I'm taking again this super sharp and thin sculpting tool, and I'm just going to make like cracks. Really, it's just that simple. Just like that. Again, look for reference if you need, if you feel like you can't do this just using your imagination. And also don't be ashamed of that. It's not that easy. But just basically you want like to make random lines here and there, but also you need to understand how a rock cracks and breaks. That's very important. So looking for reference is very useful. So just like that, as you can see, a very simple process. And once this is done, I will let this to dry for until the green stuff is fully cured. And once that green stuff is fully dry, I'm going to take some textured paint. It doesn't really matter which one it is. I'm using a Vallejo earth texture, this one, but again, it doesn't matter. Any textured paint will do. I'm just going to drop this into any broken tile, into any missing tile like this. Clean it up and just add a bit of texture there, like it was sand or soil showing through. And I'm also going to add some spots of this. That's why it's very important you have this dry over the tiles, just to add some extra texture, some more three-dimensional properties to those tiles. But again, be sure this is bone dry before you do this. And once I apply those spots, I'm going again with a wet brush, with a clean brush, and I am moving that texture around a tiny bit, just a tiny bit, and blending in it with the tiles, so it doesn't really stand out too much. It's just tiny bit of extra texture and interest into those tiles. Our base has been primed, and it's now base coated using a 1-to-1 mix of Tempergalt blue and Thunderhawk blue. And for the first highlight, I'm going to use a 1-to-1 mix of Deepkin Flesh and Baharut blue. And I will be quite rough with this. I'm not interested in doing the perfect blends here. We just want a very rough gradient. So I'm going to apply it to each stone. I'm going to choose one direction. In my case, I'm going to choose this one. And I'm going to apply the paint and feather it out into the other side, just like this. Again, you don't have to be precise here. And it really doesn't matter if we are a bit messy. Once this first layer is done, I will probably repeat this one more time just to have a better coverage. And while I'm doing this, also on top of this, I'm just going to go and do a very rough edge highlight here. Maybe not as rough as that, is actually quite bad, but you get the idea. Just like this. Just go around all the edges and pick them up. We have our first gradient now established, and it's looking quite nice. I also have all the rough edge highlights done, and now I'm going to paint all the earthy bits using Thunderhawk blue, because I just want them a tad bit more desaturated to differentiate them from the stones. So just, this will be very quick, just paint all the areas that you have some kind of earth with this, and it will create a very nice variation. And now I'm going to take Deepkin Flesh and I'm just going to do a thin edge highlight on all the stones. At this time, if you want to do a very light dry brush on the edges, you can do a dry brush. I just very much prefer the look of an edge highlight. It merges better with the kind of painting that I do. Not like this. But a dry brush for a stone is, of course, 100% acceptable and okay. And again, remember, this is just a base, so you don't have to be, you don't have to make the absolute thinnest edge highlight or the most precise or anything like that. We just want to create a definition really for the stones on the base. And a level of contrast that more or less matches the mini that will sit on top of this. That's basically the most important bit. Because if we have a very contrasty looking mini with a very dull base, it kind of looks off. Also with the same Deepkin Flesh, I'm going to do a kind of overbrush over the sand. I'm kind of removing most of the paint off the brush and I'm just going to rub it slightly over the sand bits. We just want it to catch on the raised sand bits. Really, sounds stupid, but that's what it is. With that done, I'm just going to shade the base using Cohelia green shade. This will tone down the blue tone and give it a darker look, which fits perfectly with the tiles. I will show you later on what I mean. This is a really nice wash for this. And if you were afraid this was a bit too bright, you see now what I went. Maybe extra bright for this, because this will just bring it down just to where we want it to be. And for the sand bits, I'm going to use a 1-to-1 mix of Agrax Earth Shade and Cohelia Green Shade. This will be a very minor difference, is very slight, but your brain will pick on that and it will create a more tonal variation, which we really want. Our washes are still drying, but they're drying after we can finish highlighting all the tiles, and this is going back to Deepkin Flesh. And I'm just going to redo our edge highlight, but this time taking less space. You can also just do like small dots on the corners of the tiles of each of the pavement bits. Just like that. Again, this is just a base, but we want to maintain the level of contrast we have been building in our models. And with that done, it's time to move into adding a bit more decoration into our pavement. And I like to add some tufts. And I really like this Gamer's Grass tiny tufts. These are the dry greens. They are super tiny and just perfect to put in between pavement stones. So I'm just going to take my tweezers I'm just going to grab a teeny tiny tuft and I'm just going to put it into the cracks of the pavement like this. Our tufts are now in place, but they look a bit, well, out of place really, with all the shaded, dark and very contrasty stone around it. So what I'm going to do is shade my tufts, and for this I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade. And what you want to do here is just place the Agrax Earthshade into the bottom of each tuft, just like this. It will just flow into there. Don't be afraid if you hit some of the pavement around. That will just add more color variation, but you can remove it with a damp brush if you wish. And just like that, you can see how that tuft immediately blends much better into the surrounding areas than the rest of the tufts. So I'm just going to keep on doing this. I'm just going to place my Agrax Earthshade into the base of each tuft, just like that. And now to finish off our tufts, I'm going to highlight them, because again, we need to maintain the same level of contrast on everything. So I'm just going to take Deepkin Flesh to maintain the same atmosphere, and I'm just going to, this is the loading on my brush. It's decently thinned down, just so it flows nicely. I'm just going to run this onto the top of each tuft, just like this. And again, immediately you can see that our tuft looks much better. It doesn't look like out of place anymore, and it looks like part of the scenery. And now for our final step on these bases, I'm just going to add a bit more color variation here and there. For this I'm going to use Biltan Green. And what you can do is run this, you can place a bit of this near the tufts and just feather it out like I'm doing. So I'm just placing a bit of this Biltan Green. You don't want this everywhere, but a little bit of variation here and there on some tiles is a good idea. So I'm just placing like random splotches of this and blend them into the other colors. And with that last step done and the black rim of the base is still drying, our base is finished and it just looks so good. Just so you can see, I kind of think that like we really nailed down the Cursed City tile style, color and interest here, and it's super simple to do, and I think it looks awesome. So guys, I really hope you enjoy this one, because this is probably my best basing job ever for a game or for a playable army. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Do you like my videos and want to help me make them? Well, there are several ways you can do that. You can follow me on social media. You have the links to all my social media in the description below. You can also check all my affiliate links in the pinned comment of this video. Use those links in your next hobby purchase and help me without any additional cost to you. I finally have a link for my brushes there. Don't forget to check the merch that you can see just below this video in the shop tab of my channel, but most importantly there is Patreon channel members. Check out the link to my Patreon in the description below and in the pinned comment of the video, or if you prefer you can just click the join button below this video. Patreon channel members help me do all the cool projects that I want to make and help me improve the quality of my videos. Don't be afraid, no content will ever be hidden behind a paywall, but it's a nice way to help me and you will get something back for generosity. So guys, thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to Daniel Figueiredo, Heather Amsterdam, Sigismunde, Nicolas Fornell, Tyrannosaur, Christopher Moret, Javi Mota, Joshua Bohano, Michael Boye, juanhidalgo.miniatures, Beldrain, Victor Domena, Equitas, Arundel, Brent Wood, Carlos Rivera, Charles Armintash, Chris Fyvey, Kieran O'Murthail, Darcy Farah, Dr. B, Carl Smith, G4, Jamie Milligan, Josh Simpson, JT Butler, Kevin Mian, Kevin Sulas, Renald Lindemann, Mark Jarvis, Matthew Miller, Natius Maximus, Samuel, Sasha Park, Supernev, Thomas Ustergaard, and Vilkas War for being the coolest persons in the planet. Be like these fine folks on my Patreon and take control.